Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Futures Brizio. It's 10 p.m. on Friday, December 15th, 2023. Hope everybody had a great week. And just a quick market wrap video on a few of these futures markets and what we might potentially see next week. Okay, so we will start off with oil. And you can see I'm actually in a position. This is a long position that I took. And what we had going on in oil is if we go out to the 4-hour chart, we are at a very key area right now. You can see this was the last swing high here on the 4-hour chart, and we're just kind of trading in that area. And of course, you know, this downtrend could continue, so we'll see what happens. But I think the fundamental picture of oil is a little bit more bullish, at least in the short term. We had lower than expected stocks reported in the U.S. this week for the latest December reading, and both in like commercial stocks and the strategic reserve, and so that certainly weighs on prices. Actually drives prices up, and also, you know, heading into winter, although we haven't had any real severe cold yet, but heading into winter, of course, oil prices generally will rise, at least for the first part of the winter. And then the other thing is we did have a Federal Reserve meeting this week, which was pretty dovish, where they were suggesting we'd see potentially 3 rate cuts in U.S. interest rates next year. And, you know, how that could affect the energy market basically is if they cut rates, that, you know, the markets like that, you know, in terms of revving up the economy. So if rates are lower, more building, more transport, more travel, therefore, you know, more manufacturing, therefore more oil usage, and prices go up. Also, OPEC nations and some nations are still trying to maintain their cuts, although that didn't really have much of an impact on the prices. Prices still fell despite the cuts they've had in place. But anyways, I do think at least in the short term we'll see a rally on oil. At least that's my gut, and obviously I have this long position on. So if we're wrong, we're wrong. If you know, prices continue down, then so be it. Then we'll get back on the short side. You can see we broke through this. This is that level on the 4-hour chart. We did break through it a little bit here, then we kind of just moved sideways for a couple of days, and we tried to go lower. This was yesterday. This was today. Prices started going lower. You can see it reached down right down to about the $70 area. This is the March contract, I believe. No, the February contract. And prices tried to dive down, and the buyer stepped back in again and pulled it right, snapped it right back above the moving average here. So, and then, you know, we just kind of ranged for the rest of the day. So I'm taking a little bit of a bet here that we're going to see at least a short-term rally in oil, just based on the fundamentals, and maybe not quite so much on the technical picture here yet, but if we can clear these highs, then, you know, I think this high up here would be a reasonable next target. Okay. Natural gas, on the other hand, we'll see what happens with that. So again, this is the 30-minute chart. You can go out to the hourly chart. I don't know why my charts are so funky tonight. So I have these 2 rectangles drawn in. You can see we made this new low off this last swing, and we've come all the way back up now. We did violate this swing right here. And there is a gap in the chart right here. You can see this gap, which is this first box I have drawn. You can see price came up and basically filled the gap today, and then closed outside the box back below it again. So I'm not necessarily saying this thing's going to now continue the downtrend, but it is at an interesting place after filling the gap if the downtrend will continue. Also, we do have this next overhead area, which is the next swing high. If we go out to a 4-hour chart, here's that area on the 4-hour chart, here's the gap, and then here's that next swing. So this whole area in here is really critical. If for some reason it rallies back through, then I'd be waiting for price to clear these highs before I'd be looking for any longs. But if, on the other hand, we continue to sell down, heading back into next week, and, you know, start to get some really strong bearish price action back to the downside, suggest this downtrend's continuing, then I certainly would take that too, and we probably would go down and make new lows. Okay, so that's natural gas. Soybeans is kind of now trading kind of range bound. You can see between these, every time it comes down to this low down here, it's had multiple attempts off this area around the 1300 zone. It keeps just, bouncing back inside the range. So this is kind of the swing area to watch. And I am a little bit more bullish on this because, we had this swing high, which was lower than this high, so we had a lower high. Price came down pretty aggressively, but you can see it didn't make a new high, right? The buyer stepped in long before it broke this low down here, and now we're just kind of stuck in a range. So, this can often foretold, kind of more bullish price action where the sellers really try to get aggressive, push the price lower, and then the buyers keep stepping in here. We can see multiple touches on this level. So we'll see what happens next week. To be honest, I'm really probably not interested in trading this until if it comes higher, and if it clears these highs, then I think it's got a long way to go up. Then I might consider it. But this area in between here, I'm not so sure. I mean, it's possible that this could come right back up, and this could act as a nice supply zone and continue down, and that the trading on the way up here would be good. So we'll see. But at the moment, this is only a 1 hour chart. It's not going to take it long to get here, and then we'll be able to see what happens, whether this turns into a supply zone and price sells off again, or whether we shoot higher. So, I at this point, I'm thinking I probably won't trade in between these two levels, and we'll just see what happens. Although I do have a couple of alerts set, as you can see, but I'm not really too thrilled about it at the moment, and we'll just see what happens. This is lean hogs, which I don't trade a lot. You can see the last trade I took. I think I had this in my last video. I haven't traded this all week. And you can see basically what happened is we made this low, and this was basically an all-time low, or close to an all-time low off this purple line here, off this previous low. And then we came back up into this zone, came down, again back towards this low, and now we're back into this zone again. So again, another critical area. If we break out of this and start to go higher, then these highs up here would probably be my next target, and I probably would consider that if it starts breaking higher. The fundamentals on hogs are, I was reading some news this afternoon, but the thing is, when you read the news, they're talking mostly that it was on short covering. And so, to me, that's not necessarily. I guess it depends who's covering their shorts, right? Is it the big institution, the big ag, hedgers and things like that, or is it more of the, the retail and small investment houses that are just covering shorts, taking profits off these levels? I don't know. So I'm going to stand back and watch this. If we get some nice bearish price action back out of this zone, then certainly I think prices will make it back down towards these lows, which that's a big trade. This thing moves, it doesn't move lots. In fact, some days it doesn't move at all, but when it does, you can make a lot of money on this, but you can lose a lot too. It does move quite a bit. So when it does finally go. But again, if we manage to break out of this zone higher, then I think looking at highs, back up in up in this area somewhere is probably, a target. So either way, I'm okay, but I'm watching. This is a key area. We have to figure out where we're going from here. And this could just, chop around and not do anything here for a while. We'll have to see. And just a quick touch on the NASDAQ and S&P. We had the Fed come out with its pretty dovish report a couple of days ago, where they announced that they were keeping rates the same and potentially have 3 cuts next year. That was this big rally. So this was Wednesday, and we kind of peaked out, and we've just we gave a lot of that back yesterday, and then we've basically just been in a range. We're back to up near the highs, but just basically chopping inside this range. which is not unusual. After such an aggressive move up, the market's just going to take a breather and kind of wait for, to figure out what direction it wants to go in. So basically just trading in this range right now. And again, given that we're heading towards the end of the year, the volume in the market's going to start drying up, over the next week or so, heading towards Christmas and New Year's. So we may not see a heck of a lot more movement in these. And it's the same way on the ES, on the S&P here. The range is even more defined, better defined here than it is in the NASDAQ. So we are back inside the range since the run up on Wednesday. And so being in this trade from down here was the place to be. Once this thing kind of blew off the top here, it really hasn't done much since then. So, and again, we could be potentially heading into lower volume here. So, we'll have to see what happens. But, I'm not interested in these. Certainly not interested in going short. This market hasn't really shown much reason to want to maintain any short position for too long. But you can see if it starts moving sideways, you can see back here how long we moved sideways. This was a couple of weeks ago, I guess, right? We basically moved from about November 20th till December 8th. So, a good 3 weeks here, we basically did nothing, at least not on these, this hourly time frame. So we could just do the same thing, or just go back into a sideways market and not do anything here for a while. Again, given the holidays, potentially lower volume, but we'll see how that goes. If I do trade next week, I'm thinking the ES and the NASDAQ, unless something changes, probably won't be markets I'm looking at too much for opportunities just because of this range. I'll probably, be looking again at these other markets, at these energy and grain and soybeans and hogs, those four markets, especially the energy markets. I think oil and natural gas are going to move despite everything, because especially this time of year, heading towards winter, cold weather and things like that can really cause nice volatility in these markets. So. And we have been going down for quite a while in both markets, so it'll be interesting to see if they bottomed out at all. So I'm probably more interested in those markets than S&P and NASDAQ. But again, we'll see how it goes next week. All right. Anyways, guys, I'm going to leave it there. For questions, comments, please leave them down in the comments. Please smash that like button if you that would really help me out. And subscribe to the channel if you're just finding it for the first time. And also, don't forget to check out and join my Discord channel I just started for futures. I will leave the link for that in the comments, in the description below. And again, any questions or comments, feel free to leave them. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.